Welcome everyone to Choice Conversations, the podcast dedicated to helping you improve your life, one choice at a time. I'm your host, Chris Stefanik. Let's do this. All right, today I've got a wonderful guest lined up. My friend Nathan Fraser from the Nathan Fraser Show is here, and we're going to talk about financial freedom, one of the paths to it, and that is setting up your own online business. Lots of good stuff in here today. The conversation actually went on for almost 2 hours, so this is just part one. I broke it up into 2 shows. Next week you'll get part 2. But in this week's show, we're going to get into stuff like, how being a successful entrepreneur, the most important part is helping people to solve their problems, keeping that in mind. It's finding something that you're passionate about. And we talk a lot about the importance of that, how that plays a role in all areas of the success of the business you start, ways to evaluate your target audience and the importance of that. And a specific tool for that Nathan's going to break down for us called the Viability Quadrant. Lots of value in that. Nathan's going to give us different ways to test out if the product or service you're selling will sink or swim. What are some of the best ways to test this out to make sure that you don't put a lot of time, effort, and money into something for very little return. Really, really valuable there. And we're going to talk about email lists, building and growing an email list. How do you do that? Why do you even want to do that? What are the advantages of having an email list? That sort of thing. That's going to be all in part 1 today. Lots more coming up in part 2 next week. But you will not want to miss part 1 this week. Before I get into that, though, I did just want to take a quick second to say thank you to all my patrons over at Patreon. For those of you who don't know, the best way to support this show, if you're a fan, is to go to patreon.com/choiceconversations and sign up to become a patron. So I will provide a link to that in the show notes. If you do it, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's get into part 1 of how to create a successful internet business with Nathan Fraser. Here we go. All right, everybody. Well, today I have with me Nathan Fraser. He's been on the show in the past. He's a friend of mine. He's the founder of Podcast Blast Off, a great service to help people get their podcasts up and running, a turnkey solution, if you will. He's a marketing consultant and copywriter, and he hosts the Nathan Fraser Show. So, Nathan, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Chris. It's always a blast.
All right. So, we've been talking, off air about business and the like, and I was telling you how I'm looking to start my own online business, right? And I have an interest in putting online courses up. I was thinking in the area of personal development. I have a lot of expertise in that area, and then I could really help people out, maybe make some videos and the like and put them up. And we were talking back and forth, and you said, Chris, this would make a really good podcast. Would you want to either, I could come on your show or you could come on my show and I could give you some advice in this area, because I've got more experience than you. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? That's amazing. Yes, I would. Yes, please. Where do I sign? So, I guess with that in mind, I feel like I'm putty in your hands today. So what direction kind of did you want this to go?
Well, I think maybe just to give the listeners a little bit of background on what I do. I do marketing consulting for a lot of local businesses, and I've done I've kind of branched out recently to doing, I recently did some for an international video game company and for radio stations. So I started doing local websites for people, for businesses, and it kind of, at the time, most of what I was doing was basically just making online brochures for people. Then I started my own software as a service, Podcast Blast Off, and I realized that I was making a lot of mistakes in the way that I was building websites, and I started really doing a deep dive into direct marketing or basically copywriting and learning how to use a website for more than just like an online business card, but as a way to get direct responses from people, basically turn websites into a business generating machine rather than just an online brochure. And when I started doing that, I started getting results for myself. I started getting results for my customers. And from there, it's just been kind of like a rabbit hole of basically how to build businesses, how to take businesses that are struggling and make them successful, how to take successful businesses and make them more successful. And so most of what I do now is what I try to do is copywriting. That's what I advertise myself as. But a lot of times for doing copywriting, it turns into a lot of marketing consulting. And so that's kind of where I find myself at now, being the director of marketing for Podcast Blastoff, and then doing a lot of freelance marketing consulting for other businesses as well. And you told me that you were thinking about monetizing what you're doing with Choice Conversations. And me and you have been friends for a long time. I love what you do. I love your show. I love the new branding that you've been doing with the show. And I wanted to be at your disposal. So we kind of correlated and figured we'd have a little bit of a talk about my experiences with my business and with other businesses. And hopefully it can help you in building out your monetization efforts. And overall, I'm hoping this will be a beneficial conversation for your listeners.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Now, before we dive into some of the specifics, you used the word copywriting a couple times just to clear up any confusion on that. Could you maybe give the listeners a definition of what that is? It might not be what they think.
Yeah, so it's not intellectual property. That's usually what people tell me. Oh, I've got some songs or some poetry, or I've got a book that I need copywritten. It's not that. It's basically copywriting is marketing or writing in a way that is designed to evoke a response. So rather than just branding or writing advertisements that just tell about the product or service, copywriting is a specific form of writing that is designed to walk the prospect or the lead through a journey that takes them from somebody who's interested in a solution and turns them into somebody who's willing to pay for the solution that you offer. And there, towards the end of the conversation, I hope that we can get into some simple breakdowns of some copywriting templates that I use pretty frequently. But it's basically just persuasive writing that tells people, this is the problem that you're dealing with. This is how I have solved this problem, and this is how you can get the solution as well, and then prompts them to take action.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the big thing to remember, we're talking about copywriting with WRITING, not copyrights like RIGHT, but yeah, I mean, it's selling essentially. It's a specific form of selling, right? Yeah, I like how you break it down, but
it's salesmanship in print.
Right, yeah, and that's if you're going to be successful in your own business, or even in a lot of other areas in life, you need the more you're a successful salesman, the better you're going to be. That's going to be a key component in success.
Well, and that's one of the things that we're both part of what would be kind of like overall encompassing umbrella as the Liberty movement. And I think one of the things that both of us have in common, and probably a lot of the listeners as well, we're not for coercion. We're not for forcing our ideas on people. But one of the things that we really need to focus on is if we're not going to use state violence to force people to buy into our solution, then we need to work on persuasion. We need to learn how to effectively take people from where they're at and bring them over to where our point of view. And that's really what copywriting is all about, is taking people from where they are and bringing them to a solution that will help benefit their life. Right.
Yeah, it's sales, as you know, is kind of like a dirty word in a lot of places. Maybe not so much among our audiences, especially not your audience, but just in the general public. But it's like, okay, I would much rather people try to persuade me to buy their products or to see things in their direction than to force me at the point of a gun to give up my money or to comply to their directives. It seems to me like, that's the dirty word. This is the nice, friendly way of, the civil way of operating. But I digress. So I guess with that in mind, what are like some of the key points that that you should do if you're interested in starting your own business and you're wanting to market it? What are some of the steps that you can take?
Well, I think to kind of add on to your point, first of all, business and entrepreneurship, they kind of get like a bad rap from a lot of people. And sales, especially like you mentioned, gets a bad rap. My experience has been, and I've worked with tons of different companies, and I've started 5 of my own companies. I'm on the 4th and the 5th one right now. My experience has been that in order to achieve success, you really have to be about solving problems. You really have to be about bringing benefits to the lives of your customers. And we exist in kind of like a crony capitalist economic state right now, where there are a lot of people who use regulations and subsidies to kind of bring really shoddy products to the marketplace. But at its core, the free market is about benefiting each other, about bringing benefits to the lives of others. And in my opinion, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be dedicated to solving problems for people. And so the big idea that I want to convey right off of the beginning is everything that I want to talk about today, everything that I want to kind of cover today, at the core of it, it's about solving problems. And if you don't go into any kind of business venture with that as your main drive, I can solve this problem for people. A lot of people think about starting a business because they'll be able to work from their laptop at the beach, and they'll be able to drive fancy cars and get all the women or men or whatever your preference is. They'll be able to take vacations whenever they want. And if you do have a successful business, those things might come along with it. But at the core, being a successful entrepreneur is really about a dedication to solve people's problems. So I really want to convey that and have that be the filter that people look at all of the other stuff that we're going to talk about through for the rest of the talk.
Great. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So trying to apply this to myself as I'm listening to you give your advice and the like. So for me, as offering personal development training classes, the problems that people have, it's basically they want to be better. They're not satisfied, or, maybe they're satisfied, but they know that there's more they can get from their life, And mine, one of the things I'm concerned with is my umbrella too wide? Am I not niching down enough? So, in choice conversations, I think it's probably okay to be a little bit wider. Although even there, I could certainly niche down. There's certainly plenty of other podcasts that are in the personal development space that niche down much more than I do. Where mine, I'm talking about, how to improve your life in all areas. So, that could be like, physical health, mental health, emotional health, improving your relationships, obtaining financial freedom and, having financial success. It could be, finding purpose and meaning in your life, those sort of things. Any one of those things I just listed off, that long list could be its own podcast, could be its own training course, And one of the things that, as I've tried to become a student of businesses, of podcasting, of marketing and the like, is one of the things they tell you to do is that you should really niche down and niche down again, And what were your thoughts on that? Because on one hand, I'm like, boy, I've not really niched down very far. But at the same time, I feel like one of my strengths that I could do to help others is that I have knowledge, I have expertise in all of these areas, and there are synergies that you get from improving one area helps you in another area, which helps you in another area. And when you can just take small steps in one and then take a small step in the other and a small step in the other, rather than just like putting your full focus on one, they all become easier. So I'm like, okay, do I niche down? And I guess part of it is, what's the best way to solve people's problems? Looking at it from the point that you were making, right? So And I'm not sure, to be honest, what's going to be the best way to help out people to solve their problems. What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts on it is I do agree with niching down. I specifically market myself as a copywriter. That's where I feel like that's where I can provide the most leverage for business owners is taking what they have and creating a really good message to convey the value to their customers. So I tell people I'm a copywriter. When I advertise myself, when I market myself, I tell people that I'm a copywriter. But I let people know that I'm a direct marketer. I'm a marketing consultant, but I specialize in copywriting. And a lot of times people come to me for copywriting, but then they realize, oh, we really need to focus on some traffic and we need to focus on lead generation. And because I have a background in that, I can say, okay, well, I can help you with that as well. I also have a background in web development and graphic design. So customers that come to me for copywriting, if they need graphic design work done, I can also offer that as a service as well. So I can do a wide range of things, but I focus on copywriting. I let people know this is where I'm the most relevant. This is where I can provide the most results for you. And that usually opens the door for a lot of other work as well. I believe in your position, you have a lot of stuff that you can offer. And they're all kind of related, just like in my position where graphic design and lead generation and marketing funnels all kind of relate to copywriting. But I want to be known for my copywriting. I want to be known for the guy that can write really good, high converting sales letters. And then once people have gotten to know me through there, then I can let them know, hey, if you need this work done, I can also help you with this. Or if you've already got somebody doing it, I can work with them because I understand that as well. And we can have a more impactful campaign if your copywriter also has a pretty good understanding of design and has a pretty good understanding of sales funnels. So where you're coming from, my advice would be pick the one thing that you feel like you can provide the most leverage with. Pick the one thing that you feel like you can that you're most passionate about, you can provide the most results with, and really niche down on that one. But don't throw the other ones by the wayside. Have those be additional things that people can get from you. Don't say I can only focus on the thing that I'm going to niche down on. Just say this is the one thing that I'm going to lead with, and then I have a whole umbrella of extra things that you can get from me as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And the reason why I would say that is if you're known for like 15 different things, when somebody comes to, like, somebody's worked with you before and someone needs a reference and they need somebody specifically for one thing, and it's the one thing that you're really the best at, but you haven't claimed that, you haven't dominated that niche basically. Mm-hmm. If somebody knows that you can provide it, but they also say, yeah, but he also does this and he also does this, and I'm not sure which one he's really, where he really shines at, they're going to say, but that one guy who really shines at this and that's the one thing he's known for, that's going to be the guy that they recommend. So if you can do all of those things, but you really shine at one and you stand out at that one thing, when people go for a recommendation or when people go for a referral, you want to be the first one that comes to mind for that one thing. And then if they need those other things, then you can offer them as well. But if you're known for 15 different things, you're not really, you don't really stand out in people's mind for that one thing that you want to be known for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see that. So I've got to think about that right now. I'm passionate about more or less all of them. And my level of skills in them varies from one to the other. So I'll have to think about that a little bit, do some meditating, maybe talk to some people I'm really close to, and make some hard decisions there. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the first point of really just making sure that whatever it is, whatever solution you provide, you're passionate about, and the customers that you serve, you have to be passionate about as well. Because if it's not like your number one driving passion to provide this service or to provide this solution, And if it's not your like number one driving passion to provide the solution for these customers, like for me, I love podcasting. I love podcasters. And that's why we built a company around helping solve the problems and fulfill the needs of podcasters, is because I'm a huge proponent of free speech. I'm a huge proponent of this new form of media. And I love what podcasters are doing to change the world. And I'm like driven to help podcasters. Even like you're not a customer of mine, but I do everything I can to help you because I love what you're doing. And I want to see people like you succeed, whether they're paying me or not. So for me, because of my passion for podcasting, it drives me to help podcasters, whether they're my customers or not. And the ones that are my customers, it drives me to help them even more. And starting a business is hard work. And it's not like, hey, set up this system in 8 hours and you'll be collecting money while you sleep. It's a lot of hard work to set up the foundation. And if you don't have that passion for the solution that you provide and for helping the people that your solution helps, you're going to run into brick walls. You're going to quickly lose steam. But if you start off with saying, this is my passion to bring the solution to the marketplace, this is my passion to help these people, these are the people that I'm passionate about helping, you're going to hit those brick walls and you just remind yourself, I'm passionate. These are the people I want to serve. This is the solution I want to bring. And it makes it a lot easier to be dedicated to actually seeing yourself over the speed bumps that are inevitably going to come up as you try to build your business.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, if it's something you're passionate about, then it's really not like even having a job. You know, you're doing what you love, you're doing what you're passionate about. That's one of the things I asked myself was, I'm like, okay, if somebody just gave me $100 million or whatever, and I had all the money I would need ever going forward, what would I do with my life? And one of the things I always said was, well, I would definitely keep doing the podcast because I'm passionate about it. And, you know, I'm really passionate about helping others. So then to me, it's like, okay, well, that makes sense then. That should be what I should choose for my business going forward. To, you know, I like your hashtag be your own boss, right? You've got that slogan to, you know, break free from your day job and work for yourself, be an entrepreneur. And when I was thinking about that, I'm like, well, I want a job that is just, I would do this anyway, you know, whether I needed money or not, you know, then it's not really like a job anymore, right? So yeah, that's where the passion is so key. And it's a great way to not just be successful in your business because you're driven with passion, but to also just find happiness. You know, so many people are working these jobs that are just soul sucking and they just, you know, they pretty much hate their lives. They're there spending large portions of their lives. You know, if they're lucky, they're only working 40. It's quite often 60, 80, sometimes more than that, doing something that they hate. You know, and how sad is that the majority of their waking hours doing something they hate? So, yeah, I mean, I see the passion as a key point for, one, just being successful in your business, but also just being happy and having a good life and having high quality of life. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the thing is for me, the things that I choose to work on, the customers that I choose to serve, I can put in 60 or 80 hours a week and I don't feel burnt out by it. I don't feel like I'm wasting my life. At the end of those 60 or 80 hours, I can look back at it and I can say, okay, I made the world a better place for this. Maybe it's this individual, or maybe it's their entire listening audience, or maybe it's my customer base, whatever it happens to be, though. At the end of the day, I didn't just go to work and do a job that I hate and make somebody else rich. I went to work and I served the needs of people that I'm passionate about serving, and I helped develop a solution that I'm passionate about bringing to the market. And that right there, for people like me at least, and probably a lot of the listeners as well, that right there is more fulfilling than a big paycheck, and it helps you to get that fulfillment, to get that that understanding that you're bringing value to the lives of others. For people like me, at least, and I can't prescribe it to everybody listening, but I know with our discussions, I know that you're probably very much the same way. That right there is more valuable than a big pay. Obviously, you can't put it on a deposit slip and go take it to the bank, but it does add a very it enriches your own life, knowing that you're enriching the lives of others.
Absolutely. Yeah. Money doesn't buy happiness. Money is important to the extent that you need to have a roof over your head and food on your table. But, after that, it really the best things in life don't come from money, right? So excellent point. All right. So you were saying point one was, that it's important to be passionate, right? Because of all these things we've just been talking about. What would point two be?
Point number two, and all of these points are basically like you need to have a healthy understanding of all of these. Point number two is something that I call the Viability Quadrant. I'm the only one that, when I learned this from a guy named Ramit Sethi.
I've heard of him, yeah.
He teaches it a slightly different way. He doesn't call it the Viability Quadrant, but I learned this from him, and I've kind of put my own unique twist on it to kind of, I don't want to say dumb it down, but make it easier for people to understand. And basically, it's how to judge your target market. It's how to make an estimation of how viable your solution will be, how sustainable it will be, and the realistic ability of it to succeed in the market. So the way that I look at it, this is kind of like when you have an idea for going to the market with some sort of solution. Like I said, this is all about solutions that you provide for people. When you have an idea for a solution, I like to run it through this viability quadrant to decide how successful the solution or what are the chances of the solution actually being successful as far as getting a monetary return on it. So basically, I like to draw, and in the show notes, I'll provide an image for this, but I like to draw a clock, basically. And so envision in your head a clock and split it vertically and horizontally. So you've got a section that goes from 9 p.m. till 9 o'clock till midnight. You've got a section that goes from midnight till 3 o'clock. You've got a section that goes from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and you've got a section that goes from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And down the center from 12 to 6, the line that goes down the center, on the left-hand side, you're going to have niche markets, so very little people that are interested in this, a small amount of people, not little people like midgets, but little people like the amount of people that are interested in the solution. And then on the right hand, you're going to have mass market. So niche market on the left, mass market on the right. And then from the 9 o'clock to the 3 o'clock line, the horizontal line, on the top of it, you're going to have high ticket items. So items that cost a lot of money. And then on the bottom, you're going to have low ticket items. So tickets are items that don't cost very much money. And so on the 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, the top left-hand side of the quadrant, you're going to have your niche market, but you're going to have your high-ticket items. So these are going to be things that not a lot of people need or want. It's a solution that not a lot of people are wanting, but the people that do want it are willing to pay a lot of money for it. So this would be things like Rolex watches, Lamborghinis, and what I do for people, marketing, consulting, copywriting. Not very many people need that service, but the people that do need it are willing to pay a lot of money for it. So that's where I put my services at as far as marketing, consulting, and copywriting is in the top left quadrant, or the top left section of the quadrant. On the 12 o'clock to 3, those are going to be high-ticket items, but they're going to be things that have a mass market. So it's not so much niche. There's a lot of people that want these high-ticket items. So that would be things like automobiles, flat-screen TVs, iPods, Macintosh computers, PCs. These are things that a lot of people want, but they're still high-ticket items. They're things that a lot of people need, but a lot of people are also willing to pay a good amount of money for. So that's the niche and the mass market on the high-ticket section. Now, on the bottom quadrants, on the bottom right, you're going to have the mass market, but it's low ticket. So it's a lot of people want it, but they're not willing to pay a lot of money for it. So these are going to be a lot of your mass consumer goods, things like McDonald's, Taco Bell. A lot of people are buying those things, but they're not willing to pay a lot of money for them. Tube socks and Payless shoes. Then on the bottom left hand of the quadrant, you're going to have your labor of love. It's going to be the smallest niche market, and it's going to be a solution that people are not willing to pay a lot of money for. So you're in that section. The reason why I call it the labor of love is because you're going to, if you decide if your solution falls in that section, you're going to spend a lot of time working on it. You're going to spend a lot of time marketing it, and you're not going to have a lot of people interested in it. And the people that are interested in it are not going to pay very much money to get the solution that you provide. So I don't say completely ignore that section of the quadrant, but I do tell people when they're trying to decide where their solution falls, whatever they're trying to bring to the market, wherever it falls, if it falls in that bottom left hand, that 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock section of the quadrant, you're going to have a ton of trouble trying to make any kind of money off of that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue it. It just means that if you go into it, if your solution does fall in that, understand before you even start that you're going to be putting a lot more work into it than you're going to get a payoff. So point 2 is basically understanding where your target market falls for your solution and understanding what the payoff versus the amount of work that you're going to have to put into making this a success in the marketplace. And labor of love, which a lot of us, we're very passionate about something, and we feel the need that everybody needs to know about this, and it could improve so many people's lives. But we neglect to ask ourselves how many people are really willing to pay to get this solution, and how much are they willing to pay. And that's probably the biggest reason that most businesses fail, is because they fail to find out where their solution falls on the quadrant before they actually go forward with it.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting way to look at it. And I'm wondering, with the way you presented it, it sounds almost like the mass appeal section of the quadrant, the right half of the quadrant, is favorable to the left, being the niche. Could you maybe talk about that? Because I know that, in general, they say it's really good to niche down, because by trying to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. So it's better to be more focused and niched. But the way you're presenting it, it's almost like, well, if you're niched, it's okay to be niched as long as people are willing to pay a lot of money for the product, but otherwise you don't want to be niched down. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so it's better to fall on either the right-hand side or the top section. And if you can fall into the top right-hand side, like Apple products and PCs and flat screen TVs, where a lot of people want your solution and all of those people are willing to pay a pretty good amount of money for that solution, that's obviously the best place to be at. So if you're going to bring a solution to the marketplace, that's going to be the best place to focus. The bottom right-hand side is decent, and the top left-hand side is going to be the most profitable, where it's niched, but it's also an audience that's willing to pay a lot of money for that solution. That's going to be the most profitable, but it's going to require the most amount of marketing in order to actually get those profit margins. So the top section focus on, the right-hand section focus on. The overlap, the top right, is probably the easiest to succeed in. The exact opposite, the bottom left, 3 o'clock or from 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock, that's going to be where you're going to struggle the most.
Gotcha. All right. So yeah, I guess I need to do some research and see, for my idea and personal development, because there are different areas where I could focus on, choose to be the man in one of these areas over another. look and see where these fit. So I know like weight loss, people that wanting to lose weight, there's a whole ton of people that want to lose weight. That's going to be a little more towards the right side than the left.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, people looking for a purposeful life and meaning in their life and like, that's probably going to be a little more towards the left than on the right. A lot of people just aren't that introspective. They're more into losing weight, which, they're both problems that can help people solve. And they're both things that are important and help to bring value to people's lives. But I could see where some have more mass appeal than others, and I could take that into consideration. And then also, like you said, what are people willing to pay for these things? That's one of the things I like about training classes. It seems like people will pay whatever you tell them it's worth. is what it seems like. For like weight loss, you can see there's a lot of free stuff available for weight loss, and then there's courses that are definitely would fall into the lower half of that quadrant. But then you see definitely the several courses out there that are running several $100s for a course, and people are willing to pay that. So it's kind of whatever you tell them it's worth is what people think it's worth in the course world.
And that it's kind of there's a two-part to that. What you price it will affect what other people think about the value of it. So if you price your course at $29, people will automatically assume it's only worth $29. Whereas you take the same course and you price it at $299, people will automatically assume it's worth $299. The trick is, and it's not even really a trick, but what you want to make sure is that wherever you price it, when someone's done taking it, they feel like they got that much value out of it. Because if they pay $299 and they don't feel like they got the value out of it, they're going to ask for a refund. You're going to get a lot of churn. But if they do feel like they got more than $299 value out of it, they're going to go tell their friends, oh my God, you got to take Chris's new course. You're going to get word of mouth. You're going to get people that want to help you with joint ventures. So there's pricing is a whole different beast. But what you price it, definitely what you feel confident asking for definitely affects the confidence that other people are going to have in your product.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I could see that. That makes a lot of sense. And then the importance of the viability quadrant is just evaluating what the odds are of success of this idea. Is that the purpose of it, or is it more nuanced than that?
It's about evaluating the probability of success. It's also about tongue twister right there. It's also about evaluating how much work you're going to have to put into making this successful. Like I said, you can make a labor of love successful, but you're going to have to work infinitely more than if you approach something that falls in the bottom left-hand side. You're going to have to work a lot more than if you approach something that you are confident falls in the top right-hand side.
Gotcha. All right. Sounds good. So what would be, now you figured out where you fall in the viability quadrant, what's next after that?
Like I said, being an entrepreneur is all about solving problems. The viability quadrant actually has more levels to it, though. So,
sure.
Solving problems is actually there's more than just surface level problems. There's actually more subtle problems that you're solving for people. So I like to use the example of watches. A watch obviously solves a particular problem, which is I need to know what time it is. But it also solves more subtle problems. So if we take the viability quadrant and we apply different watches to different sections, so like in the top left-hand corner where it's the niche high-ticket item, you're going to have a watch like a Rolex. And in the top right-hand corner where it's more of a mass market, but it's still a high ticket, you're going to have like a smartwatch. Down in the bottom right-hand corner where it's mass market, but it's not high ticket, you're going to have like a Casio or a really generic brand of watch. And then on the bottom left-hand corner, the labor of love section, you'd have like maybe you were passionate about sundials and you wanted to make a watch that was a sundial watch. So I know it's kind of a goofy explanation, but they all four of those watches solve the same initial problem, the same surface problem, which is I need to know what time it is. But they all also solve a slightly different problem. So on the bottom half, the low ticket half, those on the surface level and at a deeper level, they really only solve the problem of I need to know what time it is. But on the top half, the smartwatch and the Rolex, those also solve a status problem. I need to be viewed as a particular status. When people see me look at my wristwatch, I want them to think a certain thing about me. I want them to think that I'm important. I want them to think that I'm somebody who's relevant. I'm somebody who matters. When I'm in an interview and I look at my watch, I want them to realize, oh, he's got a smartwatch, or oh, he's got a Rolex. Or when I'm on a date and I look at my watch, I want the girl on the other side of the table to look at me and see the status that I have. So your solution can solve more than just one problem. And the type of problems that it solves also plays into where your product is going to fall on the viability quadrant. So all of those are watches. All of them solve the surface problem of needing to know what time it is. But the two on the top, the mass market and the niche market on the top, both also solve a status problem to varying degrees. So obviously more people are going to have smartwatches than Rolexes, and the perception of somebody with a smartwatch versus the perception of somebody with a Rolex implies different status between those two people, just like the smartwatch versus the Casio watch that you got at Walmart for $35. Both of those also imply different status. So your solution, depending on how many levels deep it goes into solving certain problems, if it just solves one surface problem, you're probably going to be in the lower section of the quadrant. But if it goes deeper and solves more problems for more higher paying customers, it's obviously going to bump itself up into the higher levels of the viability quadrant. I hope that makes sense. It's easier to show visually than it is to explain, but I hope that I did a good job of conveying what I was trying to get across.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely can see how you could use that method to break it down even further. And it's a good exercise to just be aware of the needs that you're meeting with it, and that's going to help you in your marketing. That's going to help you in expectations and the like.
Yeah. And it can, the same example can go to like restaurants. If you're solving the problem of I'm hungry and I need to get fed, there's going to be restaurants like McDonald's that only serve to solve that very base need. And then there's going to be like more expensive restaurants like Olive Garden that are going to be in the top right-hand section where it serves that basic need, but it also is a little bit more expensive. And then there's going to be the top left-hand side of the quadrant, which are like restaurants where you have to call a week in advance and reserve, and it's $100 a plate, and the food might not even be that much greater than what you would get at the Olive Garden, but just because of the exclusivity, because it solves the problem of status, when you take a date there for the first date, automatically she sees you as way higher status than the guy who took her to Olive Garden last week, and that guy even looks better than the guy that took her to Taco Bell the week before. So
right.
It's all the same solution, but because it solves the status problem, it goes a little bit deeper, and that helps move it around on the viability quadrant as well.
And so the lower left would be like the hot dog vendor at Home Depot, or
well, that's still mass market. I think the lower left would be maybe the tamale lady who sells a dozen tamales for $20.
There we go. Yep. Excellent. All right. Yeah, no, I think there's definitely value to that in thinking about your business. I could see that.
Yeah. So you want to move on to point number 4?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so point number 4 is basically what I call the sink or sail kind of test. It's basically ways to test before you invest a bunch of time and money. So you've got this idea for a solution. You've kind of placed where it's going to be at in your quadrant. You have a very good idea of who your target market is, what they're willing to pay. Then you want to test basically, is this something that I'll actually be able to sell? And there's a couple of different ways, especially nowadays. Actually, it's a lot easier. Are you familiar with the 4-hour work week? Have you read Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Okay, so he lays out in that book the way that he actually came up with the title for the book, and he talks about some other examples of this as well, which is just basically using Google AdWords and split testing the solution, split testing the proposed solution, and seeing how many people actually click. So he'll set up a page. He says, I got this idea. I want to see how many people will actually buy this solution. And before he actually creates the solution, he just creates a landing page with a buy now button. And he runs some tests on Google AdWords. And he tries to get a couple hundred people to click on the ad. And out of those couple hundred people that click on the ad and see what the solution that's proposed is, out of how many of them click the buy now button, and obviously if the test or if the proposed solution is still in like testing mode to see if it's viable or not, it'll just say, sorry, this is sold out at this time, or sorry, we're still in development, but please give us your email so we can notify you when we have this done or whatever. But basically just test it out, see how many people are going to click on the ad for it. And then out of those people that click on the ad, how many people would actually click buy? I mean, it's great to say, yeah, I'd buy that. But when somebody actually clicks buy, that's a whole nother level of validation. Seeing how many people hit the ad, how many people hit the page, and then how many people take the action to convert. That right there gives you a great amount of information on how many people actually would pay for this solution at the price point that you're thinking would be a good price point for it. That's one way to test it. Another way to test it now that's accessible to everybody. Google AdWords is kind of expensive. You have to learn about keywords. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to set up a good landing page. You have to know how to do all of that stuff, which is maybe a hurdle for a lot of people out there. But another thing that is accessible to everybody nowadays is crowdfunding. Things like GoFundMe or Indiegogo. Those type of things now make it to where anybody with the idea can float the idea out to the market and say, hey, would you be willing to buy this? And would you be willing to pay in advance to help create this solution? And say, this is how much it's going to cost to create the solution, and how many of you are willing to, more than just say, yeah, that's a good solution, and actually put some money up to help create that solution. So crowdfunding is a great way to test the viability of a product before you actually invest a bunch of time and money into creating it. Another way is to do a pre-sell, similar to what Tim Ferriss recommends. You can do it without Google AdWords. If you have a list of people that you say you have an email list, which I harp on you about, you really need to get your email list going.
Sure.
But I have an email list, and this is the way I decide whether I'm going to do T-shirts or whether I'm going to do courses in the future. Is I say, hey, are you interested in this? I'm about to do these T-shirts. I'm only going to do them if I get at least 50 orders. So if you want one, go ahead and click buy now. If I don't get 50 orders, I'll reimburse the money. But if I do get 50 orders, I'm going to go ahead and print the shirts. That way I don't spend a bunch of money on T-shirts that don't end up selling and then end up just sitting in a box in my garage. I don't waste any money on something that people aren't interested in buying. I let them say, yeah, I'm interested in buying it before it's even actually created. Same thing with courses. The last email course that I did, and any future courses that I'm going to do going forward, I'm just going to pre-sell them. I'm going to say, hey, I've got the outline for this course before I actually go through and turn it into a bunch of slides, before I actually go through and set up all of the modules and set up all of the PDFs that go along with it. I'm going to sell it for $29.99, and I need to make sure that at least 10 of you are willing to buy this course before I put all the time and effort into it. And having an email list or having a community on Facebook like I do with the Free Market Squad gives me the ability to float the idea and see who's willing to pay for it before I actually put the time and money into creating it. And then the last way to see whether or not people would actually buy something is what I call, and I got this from I think his name's, I want to say it's Michael Masterson, whoever wrote Ready, Fire, Aim. He refers to this as the Me Too product, and you see this a lot in like Hollywood. The Volcano movie comes out, and then the other Volcano movie comes out the same summer, or
right.
Deep Impact comes out, and Asteroid comes out the same summer. A lot of times, Hollywood likes to do the Me Too product. They say, "Oh, this is going to sell," or "This is already selling. Let's go ahead and make a knockoff of this." A good example of this is like taking something that people are already buying. So in your industry, you could look and see which are the highest selling courses, which are the courses that people have already proven that they're interested in paying. What solutions do people already show that they're willing to pay a good amount of money for? And then just do a Me Too product, but put your own personal twist on it. Don't just completely copy and paste, but say, this is how I see it. This is the way I see the solution. This is my personal take on this solution. Another example of this is like, say, a tennis ball. You want to make a product for people that want to play fetch with their dog. You know that lots of people buy tennis balls to play fetch. You say, what twist can I put on the tennis ball? I don't want to just sell tennis balls. What are the things that people like about tennis balls? Well, they're soft, they're easy to throw, they fit in the dog's mouth very well. Those are the pluses. What's the negatives of the tennis ball? Well, it's green and it gets lost in the grass pretty easily. And if my dog can't find it and it's green and it's far away and I can't find it either, that kind of sucks. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to make a tennis ball, but I'm going to make it bright orange so that if the dog can't find it, I can definitely find it. So it's a Me Too product. It's something that's already proven to sell, but you put your own twist on it, and it's got to be a beneficial twist. It's got to be something that says, okay, this is unique about it, and it makes it better than what's already out there. And that's a way to say, this is what people are already buying, but here's a unique twist on what people are already buying that actually goes above and beyond what's currently out there. And that's another great way to know in advance, before you put all the time into creating it, know in advance why people are buying what they're already buying, and then what you can do to kind of one up the solution that's already out there.
Yeah, that's some really great ideas. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at like a pre-sale, somebody like me that does not have an email list. Is that even an option at this point? That's kind of like a prerequisite for something like that, right?
It helps. It definitely helps. And that's why I always harp on everybody who's, if you've got content, if you're creating a podcast, if you've got an audience, you really need to take that relationship to the next level with an email list. I am a huge proponent, still 90, and don't quote me on this statistic because I'm just making it up, but 90% of things that get sold on the internet get sold through email. That's all of my sales come through email. Every single sell that we've made of Podcast Blast Off, every single customer that I have on Podcast Blast Off has come through email. All of my T-shirts sell through email, or a good percentage of my T-shirts sell through email. So, email is, in my opinion, the best. Like if you're doing anything to start creating an audience, day one you should be collecting emails from people. It's the easiest way to do it, but like Tim Ferriss did, Google AdWords works, Facebook ads work, just setting up a landing page and seeing how many people that hit that landing page. And it's not always the best indicator because maybe your copy is not on point. Maybe the benefits aren't explained well enough. But it does give you a good indication of whether or not it's a solution that people are willing to engage in. Having a podcast, though, I mean, if you have a comment section in your podcast and you say, hey, is this something that you'd be interested in? If I get at least 10 people to say that they'd be interested in it, I'll develop the idea further. There's lots of different ways that you can test it. Preselling also, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's a course by Dane Maxwell called The Foundation, and it's all about coming up with digital solutions to problems that business owners are having. And one of the big things that he talks about is pre-selling it. And basically he says, and I don't want to give away his whole solution, but what he really advocates is get a targeted number of specific people in a specific profession and just go to them and ask them, hey, what's the biggest problem that you deal with? What's the biggest inconvenience that you have? What's the biggest time waste that you find in your business? What is the biggest place that you just feel like you're spinning your wheels and not getting anywhere? And go to 10 or 15 people in a specific industry and ask them these questions and find overlap. And then once you have the overlap, once you say, okay, this is what people are most commonly dealing with, this is the problem that most people need a solution for, then go back to them and say, okay, if I was willing to create a solution like this, would it be something that you would be willing to buy? And would it be something that you would be willing to have a further discussion about how this solution would need to be formulated in order to best meet your needs? And then the ones that say yes, they obviously have a lot of buy-in for it. And if out of 10 people, 8 people say, yeah, this is a big enough problem that I'd definitely be willing to spend an hour with you talking about it, that gives you a really good idea of what is needed out there. Again, that kind of neglects the passion part of it. So I'm not a huge fan of just solving problems that you're not passionate about solving. But if you are passionate about solving a problem for a specific targeted group of people, it's a really great way to, just like me, if I tried to apply this to podcasters, if I went to 10 or 15 different podcasters and I said, what's the biggest problem that you have and what's the best way to solve that? Or would you be willing to talk about a solution that you think would be viable for it? For me, that would be perfect because it would let me know what people are willing to buy. It would let me know what people are willing to invest time in, and it'd be for an audience that I'm passionate about serving. So you got to be creative about it. You got to look at what other people are doing, but there's a lot of ways to pre-sell your idea before you put a bunch of time into developing the solution.
All right, so you've convinced me that I need to get an email list. What's the best way to actually grow that list once you've got it?
The best way to grow the list is to have a good idea of who you want on your list and have a good idea of an easy win that you can provide for those people that will get them willing to give you their email. So actually this discussion that we're having right now comes from a course that I'm putting together right now that's going to be an email opt-in. So what we're talking about right now, I'm actually going to turn into a really short video course. And on freemarketsquad.com, I'm going to take this course and I'm going to give it away to people that will sign up for my email list. I'll say, hey, I've got this through the experience that I have. I know what works and I know what doesn't work. And I know how to make sure that before you start spending all of your time building out this product, these are the things that you need to know before you go into it in order to guarantee your success. If you want this course, I'm giving it away for free. All you have to do is give me your email so I can send you the link to where you can get the course. It's targeted. It's the people that I want are people who are trying to start a business or are already struggling with a business and need to figure out where the leaks in their bucket are. And so that's who I want on my email list. And I'm giving them something that I know will be enough value, and right off the bat, it'll give them some easy wins. They'll be able to quickly identify where they're at on the viability quadrant. They'll be able to quickly identify where their bucket is leaking water and where they need to seal up their bucket in order to stop letting profits fly out the window. And so it's targeted to the people I want on my email list, and it's something that gives them immediate benefits, immediate value right off the bat. It gives them a small win right off the bat. And my hopes are that it'll help fill up my list with people that are qualified for future. Like I said, I do marketing consulting and I do copywriting. So if they get these first 3 or 4 steps correct, then they'll be a perfect target or a perfect lead or a perfect client for where I can take what they've already built and really leverage, add in my knowledge of marketing and copywriting, and take their solid foundation and just leverage it and turn it into profits. So what you want to do for anybody out there who's thinking about starting an email list is, number one, identify who you want on your email list based off of who you can better serve on a higher level. Find out what you can give them that'll give them a quick win right off the bat, and also qualify them as somebody who's in that target group of people that you want on your email list, and then just create that solution and tell them, hey, give me your email address. I'll send you the solution, and I'm going to keep in contact with you. And as I come up with more advanced solutions or more advanced services, I'm going to let you know about those as well.
Yeah, my mind's churning. I can think of definitely easy wins that I can offer to my clients, to my audience, my hopefully future clients, in all those different areas that I talked about that I have expertise in, all the different areas that I talk about on Choice Conversations. So yeah, I could see making a video with an easy win for how to lose weight, making a video for an easy win on how to improve your relationships, that sort of thing, how to get a good night's sleep. There's definitely some easy wins in all those different areas, right? So, and I could definitely see myself not just picking one of them, but over time putting all of them out there, as different ways to add people to the list and grow the list.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got enough from the different areas that you go through, from the different topics that you cover on your show, from the different areas that you have expertise in. You have a lot, like we were talking about earlier, you have enough to where you could build like a whole umbrella of different services. Where you should start at is number one, where you have the most passion. Number two, figure out where it falls in that viability quadrant. And number three, when you've got those two things figured out, then figure out the number one easy win that you want to offer that targets those people and that passion, and make that be your lead, your most forefront lead magnet, and really go hard on that one. And then once that one starts to wear thin, then start maybe expanding. But I would say start with just one. Start with one that falls in a good section of the viability quadrant. Start with one that you can really be passionate about, and the target audience you can be passionate about serving them, and figure out what that easy win is for them, and go hard with that one. And the things that you learn from that one will make all of the consecutive ones a lot easier to turn into conversions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Really enjoyed this talk. I'm hoping you're enjoying it as much as I am. Really great stuff there. Nathan talked to us about that the biggest, most important thing for being a successful entrepreneur is helping people to solve their problems, keeping that always at the forefront. He talked about the importance of being passionate about, that'll give you the energy you're going to need to put in the work. That's going to help make it just even if you've got the energy, it's going to make your life more fulfilling if you're passionate about what it is you're doing. That it's not even like being a job, it's just you love what it is you're doing, right? You talked about evaluating your target audience, the target market via the viability quadrant, and then looking at, what problems, the importance of evaluating what problems does your solution solve, with the various watch examples, right? And how thinking about that and having that clear in your mind is going to help you to know who your customers are and how to go about getting this product out there, solving those problems for people. He gave us a lot of great ideas on how to test your product. Will it sync or will it sail? Looking at AdWords, crowd selling, pre-sales, all of that good stuff, Me Too products. And we talked a lot about email lists there at the end, right? The importance of having an email list. There's a lot of advantages to it. It's a really great selling tool. And it gave some tips on how to grow them. I like that, 3 steps he gave me there towards the end. Determining what you're passionate about. Looking at that viability quadrant, right? And thinking about the problems it solves. And then finding an easy win, right? So I know lots of easy wins across all these different areas that we talk about here in Choice Conversations, right? The different areas of personal development. I've got lots of ideas for where I can go with this going forward. Really, really good stuff. Be sure to check back next week for part 2. Really great. If you agree with me, if you thought this was really great, the best way to tell me that would be to become a patron. Go to patreon.com/choiceconversations or click on the link in the show notes and sign up. That would be totally awesome. If you want to talk about this show with me and other like-minded people, come on the Facebook group, join up. If you just go under groups on Facebook and search for Choice Conversations, you'll find it, or there's also a link for that in the show notes as well. All right, people. It's been lots of fun. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourself. And remember, make the choice to be great.